Hey, welcome back to another episode of In My Business. It's me, Dr. Tiff of Dr. Tiff's Community. And today I want to dive into a topic that every single entrepreneur, whether you've been in business for 1 year or you've been in business for 20 years, you've probably wrestled with this at some point, and that's making poor decisions in business when you're desperate. So let's get into it. Now, desperation will have you out here doing some pretty serious things. You'll be signing contracts that you didn't read fully. You'll be cutting prices that don't make sense because you're trying to get business in, or you'll be buying shiny new things that you saw because you were doom scrolling on social media and you're convinced that this one thing is going to fix everything. I want you to hear me out when I say I am speaking from experience, because I have been there so many times over. And sometimes when that pressure is on, we act fast because we want to feel like we're doing something, like we're doing anything. So we're moving. We're not necessarily thinking it out, thinking it through, because the truth is that not every quick fix is actually a fix. So in this episode, we're going to talk about some of those common desperation traps that business owners fall into. And I want you to know how to spot them before they cost you time, which is going to cost you money, which is going to ultimately cost you your peace of mind and lead to more stress. And none of those should be an option when it comes to your business. So let me start with the first one. And this is something that may hit home for you, because that's making decisions based on cheap prices. I know. We've all been here at some point, but we've also heard this saying that says, you get what you pay for. And if that's not the truth, I don't know what is. I get people that come into my business at Postnet all the time, and they say, can you price match? I found a cheaper online printer and they're going to do this for me, but the shipping is crazy high, and I need it in so many days. And I understand, I get it. Budgets are tight. You want to save money. But then you go with that cheaper printer and they deliver something pixelated or flimsy, or it shows up late, or you end up paying this huge amount for shipping. And now we're having a conversation the next time about why you should have invested in a partner who values that quality. Because here's the thing. The closer you are to your deadline, the more moving pieces it takes for us to get it done. It's not about paper and ink. It's time, it's staff, it's machine schedules, it's delivery, it's those logistics. All of that stacks up. And what happens when you wait until the last minute? The price goes up. The stress goes up. The chances of things going wrong go up. So here's a tip. The longer you wait, the more expensive the job becomes, not because someone is trying to punish you. So this just doesn't come from me in my business. This is with a lot of different vendors that you may work with. And it's because it takes that much time and more energy and resources to pull it off. And I also want to say this. Trying to haggle at that point, don't even try to do it. It does not help. It actually makes it worse. If anything, if you're operating in those tight spaces like that, then that should be the expectation that you're going to pay a premium. So there's a lesson in here. And the lesson is plan ahead, respect the timelines. If you value quality and service, don't wait until that last moment when desperation hits. Because desperation and low budgets, they don't mix. They don't mix at all. I also want to say that we deal with so many of these instances. So those situations aren't necessarily pitted towards one customer or another. These are customer types that we deal with all the time. And we do have to educate our customers so that they know that we're going to do everything in our power to take care of that situation. But we do use that as a teachable moment to educate them so that they know that they have to prioritize printing. Now, let me share another story. And this is a personal story with you about when it happened to me. So some years back, I bought a house and I had to renovate it. Big renovation. Do everything over. And I chose what I thought was a good general contractor, or GC. They were the lowest cost, and that was my mistake because I picked the least expensive option. I went and I did my due diligence and I researched others and I compared the cost and compared the time that it took to get it done. And I chose the fastest option, which was also the cheapest option. I know sometimes faster costs more, but in this case, it should have been a red flag. I didn't know at the time. I was desperate to get this done because I was already living in this house. And I thought that I was being smart. But guess what? They cut a lot of corners. And those cuts, they weren't discovered until a year, maybe 2 years later. There were signs during the process. But, when you want what you want, you have a tendency to blind out everything else that, could be a red flag potentially. But we found plumbing fixtures that weren't properly sealed, and that led to water damage, which led to some very costly insurance claims and months and stress of getting it fixed, and the house not being inhabitable. It stayed at a hotel, and there was some faulty electrical work. And there was a few other incidents that I don't even want to mention because honestly, it still pisses me off. But here's the truth. Part of that was my own fault because I wanted the least expensive service for the least amount of time. And the least expensive service took shortcuts. And I learned the hard way. So now when I choose a contractor, I ask more questions, I verify the past work, I do all of that. And I will never, ever, 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 ever make the decision to remodel a house while I'm living in it again. Never. Because all that did was drive up the pressure to make them move even faster. And I pay for that decision many times over. I want you to know that the same thing applies in business. Cutting costs in the wrong place, it does not save you money. It's going to create bigger problems down the road. The next trap is making emotional decisions instead of logical ones. Right? So there's a moment that maybe you recognize we're entrepreneurs, so this happens. You get this burst of motivation. You've had several cups of coffee or whatever it is that jolts you up. You listen to your favorite business podcast, Dr. Tiff's Community Presents In My Business. And now you're ready to do this major overhaul. But here's the thing. Emotions are powerful, but they're not always accurate. And you have to know the difference. So when you act on impulse, especially when money is tight, You may end up committing to things that you don't fully understand. You haven't taken the time to do your research. And I don't know, it could be hiring a marketing firm that it sounds good. And they promise you all these things and you could see it all happening for you real quick. Or you're buying equipment and you don't know how to use it yet. I want you to do this. Instead of rushing, give yourself what I'll call it the sleep test. So you may be asking, what's the sleep test? And that's if it's still a good idea after a full night's rest, you're still thinking about it when you wake up, you've conducted your research and you've called someone to get a second opinion, and then you still want to move forward, then move forward. If you don't think about it when you wake up in the morning and you don't feel like doing the research for it and it's not necessarily a priority, then maybe that's your answer. And you've also saved yourself from a costly mistake. Because I'll be honest, when I say that this is something that I am continuously learning, I don't want you to think for a second that I'm sitting here preaching without fault. Or I'm saying this because I have never experienced before, but I want to tell you about it. Nope, wrong. These are true stories. Very true. And they're based on moments that I have found myself literally crawling out of a financial hole because I thought it was a good idea to bring on something that I had no experience or no business bringing in. Let me share a story that still makes me cringe a little bit thinking about it, but lesson learned. I was at a trade show, was walking the floor, and then I spotted this beautiful piece of printing equipment. It was beautiful. It was like the sun was shining on this thing. And the sales reps were good. I mean, they got us all hyped up about this piece of equipment, showed us some of the functionality of it, did some demos. It was great. They did their job. They increased our excitement about this piece of equipment. And they painted a picture of this increased capacity, new revenue streams, competitive advantage, all of the things. And it was good. So by the end of our conversation, I was sold. I mean, literally, we bought this piece of equipment right off of the showroom floor at this special show discount, right? They wanted to get rid of the equipment and, we wanted to buy it. So it was a win-win. What happened next was a masterclass in poor planning on my part. The equipment arrived, and when it arrived in a crate. Not delivered and installed. It was dropped outside of our storefront like it was a package. Huge piece of equipment in a crate. So we had to find the tools to open it ourselves and to then recruit people to help us move this commercial grade equipment. So it wasn't light. It was a heavy piece of equipment. And we had to recruit people from our business neighbors, customers that were walking into some of the other businesses to help us move this equipment into the store. Once we got it in the store, it sat like in pieces for a week because we needed a professional to come to configure it. And it took them about a week to send someone out to come to put it together professionally. And then once they put it together, we had to receive training on it. So the training took another 2 weeks because there was only one person that was trained on this piece of equipment with the dealer that we went through. And so we found out at the last minute that they weren't able to come and conduct training in our physical location. So we had to do this condensed version of training via Zoom because they couldn't make it out. And long story short, the result was this expensive new piece of equipment is sat unused for about 3 months. Yep, 3 months. 3 months, no money coming in for this piece of equipment because we didn't have the confidence to fully operate it or market it to customers. There was still so much that we needed to learn and to know about this piece. And at the end of the day, there was this strained relationship between us and the vendor who was as impulsive as we were, right? So they were impulsive to sell and we were impulsive to buy. And in hindsight, I would have waited until after the trade show, after the excitement of the trade show ended, and I would have researched the equipment thoroughly. I would have planned for the installation and the training process. I would have considered exactly where we were. I would have done more of my due diligence. But instead, I let the emotion and excitement drive a major business decision. I should have done the sleep test. And, because at the end of the day, the key is building a space between emotional impulse and this financial commitment. And you want to make sure, you always want to make sure that you're not making impulsive decisions like the one that I made. All right, now let's get into the good stuff. Let's talk about pricing. Yes, pricing. Because this is where desperation shows up in some pretty interesting ways. Okay. And it's something that we think about automatically sometimes. So when sales are slow, it's very tempting to think, if I lower my prices, then it'll attract more people and more people will buy. And let me say that on the surface, that makes so much sense. It does. It makes sense to me. But here's the trap. If you start adjusting your prices to fit everyone, then that becomes a problem. So what's the problem, you may be asking? The problem is that more customers at a discount doesn't always equal more profit for your business. In fact, it can mean the opposite. So think about it. More orders equals more labor equals more staff equals more payroll. And all of this is happening while you're charging less. That math don't always math. Instead, set your prices based on value. Don't set your prices based on fear. Don't do it. Don't get so desperate to where you think you have to drop your prices to attract more people. Instead, I want you to think about pricing strategically, not desperately. There's a difference. And think about this. You don't have to serve everybody, because the right customers are going to come in and they're going to respect your value. If you attract too many of the wrong customers, then there's a possibility that they will always expect to have some sort of discounted service. So then you'll always find yourself having these conversations with customers, potentially making them unhappy because they expect a discounted service all the time, and you may not be able to make that happen in your business. But I'll share with you what one of my mentors shared with me. It was this. He said, you're in business to solve a problem, but you're in business to make a profit. If what you're doing is not making you a profit, then you need to stop doing it. That's it. If what you're doing, if the tactics that you're implementing in order to attract more business is not making you any money, then stop doing it. That's a message. That's a message. Now, let me share this other trap, and this is a quick one, sweet and to the point, and that's staffing. Okay, so I know that it feels so good to say, I'm building a team, and you want your business to sound bigger, more established. But here's the thing. If you don't have the demand yet, then overstaffing is going to eat your business alive. It really is. Payroll is one of the largest expenses that you'll carry if you bring on personnel. So if you're bringing on people, but you don't have the work that's going to actually sustain them and keep them productive, unfortunately, you're going to put them and your business in jeopardy. So the lesson here is start lean and grow strategically. Don't drown in overhead. Staff according to what you actually need to hire for. Don't hire for the work that you hope will come. Hire for the work that you actually have. Now I want to get into one of my last traps with one of my favorite sayings. And that's the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Some of you may have heard it before, and it's true. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. But it's only true in some cases, not in all. So when you're desperate and you feel like you have to fix everything right now, I want to let you know that it is not always the case. It's not. Every squeak, every wrinkle, every imperfection, it doesn't always need to be fixed. So here's the thing. Sometimes it's okay to let the wheel squeak a little bit. Okay? It's okay. So now, let me be clear. Let me go ahead and put a caveat. If your equipment is flashing a warning light, or if it's red and it's not working, or, go and get that fixed. Get your equipment fixed. If your software crashes and you need this in order to operate your business, that's not a squeak. That's a full-blown crash. Get that taken care of immediately. But when it comes to the aesthetics of things, like the paint on your walls or the organizational system that you want to invest in because you think there's an issue, that can wait until the budget says, I'm ready for it. So not every problem is going to be urgent, and not every squeak deserves your money at that time. I want you to really try to prioritize what keeps your business running. Start getting in the habit of sometimes being uncomfortable with where things are going for now. It doesn't mean that it always has to be that way. And this is especially for my startup businesses, for my small businesses, for businesses that don't necessarily have the fluidity, the capital to invest in their businesses right away because they're trying to build. So when that desperation comes, I want you to take a beat and think about, does this really need to be fixed right now? So here's the takeaway. Desperation is not our friend. It is a terrible, terrible business advisor. It should not be in control ever. Because when you're making decisions from a place of panic and fear and impulse, you're usually making choices that will cost you so much more in the long run. So, take my advice when I say this. Slow down. Think it through. Do that sleep test. Evaluate the cost. Think about the value. Think about if the timing is right for this decision. Because sometimes the best decision is actually to not make a decision at all, to wait. Listen, if you've already made some of these mistakes, please don't beat yourself up, because I have made so many of these mistakes. But this is why I am able to sit here and laugh about it and calmly tell you that it will be okay. Don't do what I have done and so many other entrepreneurs have done in this category. We're learning. I'm learning to be better. And I've gotten so much better over the years. But it's still a work in progress, and I still have to force myself to take a beat. Make the decision later, even if I'm all excited about it in that moment. I can't make impulse decisions like that, because the times that I have made these impulse decisions, I have ended up paying the cost of the inconvenience on the back end. So the key here is I want you to learn from it, make better choices next time, like me, share with people. People want to know that they're not alone when they, make these decisions out of desperation. Because sometimes when you're doing it and you're going through these processes, you may feel like you're all by yourself, like you're isolated. Well, you're not. You have a friend right here. And so it may be good to share it out and talk to other business owners and laugh about some of the mistakes you made. Because in hindsight, they are funny. They really are funny. They may still piss you off, but some of them you will probably get a good laugh thinking about the decisions that you made out of desperation. So I want you to remember this. Desperation is going to have you chasing shortcuts, but think about strategy, because strategy will have you building sustainability, and that's what we want. So that's all for this episode of In My Business. And if this one hits home for you, I want you to share it with another entrepreneur who you feel might be undergoing the pressure right now and in a desperate time, and maybe on the verge of making a desperate decision. If your business needs quality print and design work done right the first time, you already know where to find us at PostNet Shorewood, your graphic design and printing hub. Because when you succeed, so do we. Until next time, entrepreneurs, keep making those smart moves, not the desperate ones.